What a big week it's been for Overwatch 2. Season 6, their biggest and most impressive content drop with a new hero, game mode, limited time event, and more on the way. And they brought the game onto Steam? This has kind of been what I and many others have been waiting for. So what's the deal with this? Well, the devil's in the details with this one. Like I said, the game's only kind of been what we've been waiting for, but boy is that oversimplifying the out of it. Before I start my rampage, I will say that I've played the new Overwatch season and all the new content. I think it's great. The new hero they made is so good and it's some of their best work. You actually have to try it. And the campaign too. Even this watered down version I can get behind. I was grinding the hardest difficulty the other day on stream and I replayed the same section for hours. But that isn't really what this video is about. The game's been review bombed into the dirt is the only way to put it. Overwatch 2 is now Steam's worst rated game of all time. And if the new season is great, then what's the deal? Well, that is the question that seemingly started a rift on Overwatch Twitter, X, between esteemed members of the Overwatch community about just how naughty the consumer really is. So basically, I'm going to discuss all the points against the review bombing and why they're all wrong. Let's go. It's probably best to start with my own position. I think this review bombing is completely justified, even if I think the game right now is decent, for a few reasons. Overwatch 2's release was awful. The original Overwatch 1 player base was completely burned. It came out that Blizzard was a company full of sexual harassers, and that's putting it nicely. The Overwatch League has been a complete flop of unwatchable tone-deaf garbage. Overwatch 2 went through 4 straight seasons of the devs lying and hyping up the PvE, and then rug pulling it, so that they could then repackage salvaged missions into the predatory monetization system that was hollowly used as an excuse to launch Overwatch 2 in the first place. People aren't just reviewing the gameplay of Overwatch 2, though some actually are. They are reviewing the experience of being an Overwatch player, which, as you can see, is immense disappointment. You cannot disagree with that. If you want a more in-depth description as to why the game's been so disappointing, you can watch this video here. Now that we've set the scene, let's dive onto X and see all the level-headed takes about this situation, given how stellar and deserving Blizzard is of the benefit of the doubt. Why is the Overwatch community so quick to want to review bomb it on Steam or write negative things in the community section? This is good for our game. It's okay to be upset with how it is now, but maybe we don't try to ruin its future? Well, I think we've arrived at our first point. As you can see here, despite the overwhelmingly negative reviews, the game is doing very well on Steam. It has already, and this is just in Steam sales as a free-to-play game, reached nearly the top 10 in best sellers by revenue because people are buying DLC and passes for the game. In fact, it's arguable if there wasn't an overwhelmingly negative response, that Blizzard would take it as being able to get away with anything. This is currently the way for the consumer to let the developer and the company behind them know how they feel about what they're doing. The band-aid has been ripped, but the wound was always there. If Battle.net had reviews, it would look like this as well. The number one message that Blizzard is actually going to receive from all this feedback is that the wider gaming community is very dissatisfied with them, and the devs have already admitted before that knowing players' frustrations is very important to them. This review bomb could very well be a catalyst for a serious improvement in Blizzard managing expectations better. I'll also just say as a side note that there's no hate to any of the creators I'm talking about in this video. Really, we all want the same thing. I just think it's necessary for the consumer to have this outlet. Moving on. A lot of hateful people go out of their way to review bomb a game they quit long ago or never even played, while people who love the game just enjoy it and say nothing. If you actually enjoy Season 6 or Overwatch in general, then you should go leave a positive review. I personally think you should leave a reasonable review if you care about it. If the reviews were fairer, they would probably be relatively the same, and just caveat that they're not aiming their hate at specific developers. Me personally, I'd give the game a 5 out of 10, and I would absolutely mention all my dissatisfaction with what Blizzard has done up to this point. On to the next one. 0% of the Overwatch 2 Steam reviews are verified. Lamau. This is 100% a review bomb campaign. This brings me to a pretty significant point. A massive portion of the negative reviews aren't even English speakers. He's saying they all have some UN translator coordinating them, or perhaps a super evil Twitch streamer with influence that spans borders and languages. Or instead of believing it's some conspiracy as an extreme form of cope, maybe everyone around the world has just looked at this and made the same conclusion. I'd also like to ask you guys on Twitter now, where the were you when the game was review bombed on Metacritic? Is it just because it's convenient to have an opinion and get a quick dunk now? You know, the thing you think you're criticizing people for? Fundamental thing I wish was taken into consideration when people criticize Overwatch's monetization. The devs don't benefit from greedy pricing, execs do. Call me a bootlicker, but I just think nuance should exist in the criticism of things that people put their whole hearts into. So a few things. I don't think anyone is really criticizing an artist or character modeler. I think it's pretty obvious to most people that everyone is pissed off about the false advertisement, rug pulling, mishandling of the game and the metas, and predatory monetization. Does that mean they should be using the review system in this way? Not necessarily. I would agree that this is imperfect. Currently, there aren't that many better options. If all of you guys are upset about this use of the review system, you guys should be aiming your dissatisfaction at Steam. But instead, most of this is just moral posturing to tell a bunch of people who are rightfully very upset with Blizzard that they're wrong because Activision hired innocent devs to do their work. People don't hate the guys that are just doing their jobs. And Blizzard could have seen this review bomb coming from a mile away. They put themselves in the crosshairs. It is not the consumer's fault for being lied to. It's also not the duty of the consumer to insulate the makers of a product from criticism. I'm confident that most people at Blizzard are sensible enough to acknowledge that the dissatisfaction in the player base is probably not focused on the quality of their work as an individual. You can't tell the player base to go easy about one of the worst gaming rug pulls because you don't want them to hurt the feelings of the devs. The devs actively seek out negative feedback so they can analyze why people are feeling bad, not even necessarily the content of the things they're saying. And no, I'm not saying personal attacks on the developers themselves are a good thing. Obviously, like people who make porn work harder than the devs. Is someone memeing and not taking this seriously? You can, as adults, sort through nonsense to the meat of the discussion. Now, you might have seen this coming if you'd seen my previous videos, but the devs actually deserve some criticism. They were using personal Twitter accounts to hype up the coming PvE story missions, which hadn't yet been broken down into a quarter of the campaign with a quarter of the gameplay, when they knew that's what was happening the whole time. And you know what? I'll say this again. People are not just reviewing Overwatch the game, and they don't have a duty to just keep it to the quality of the gameplay, even though I'd say a lot of people would still agree it needs some serious work. Look at it this way. Your mates tell you about a restaurant that has 10 out of 10 food. You go, wait in line for 45 minutes, sit down, order your food after another 25 minutes of being ignored, and you wait there for 2.5 hours, constantly being told by the waitstaff that your food is on the way, and after 3/4 of the restaurant's customers have left without their meals, the waitstaff finally come up to you and say, the menu has completely changed. Now you finally get your food at the end of the night and it was fantastic. But does that warrant a good review? Would you ever go back? That's what these reviewers are saying now. They're reviewing the whole experience, the service. In this case, the live service. You're incentivized to sink time and money into the game to receive rewards from certain mechanics and things to show off so that there's a sunk cost loop and you keep your eyes on the game and the digital environment that they can control and advertise to you within. Part of this service is having a roadmap, communication with the players. Now, none of that is set in stone. You can say you think gamers are entitled. It doesn't matter. This is how a market works. Players can see what other games are doing and when they're giving better offerings. How can you not compare the value proposition? Anyway, we're getting back to my final point, which was mentioned earlier in the video. Two of the most high-profile Overwatch creators, Stylosa and Flats, have been criticized heavily on Twitter because people believe that negative videos they made about the game has influenced public opinion so much that it has resulted in a hate brigade on the Steam review system. It's been a long few years for Overwatch with lots of ups and downs, but it's sad to watch the Reviewbomb campaign in arguably the best season of content we've ever had. Wow, wonder why people are so negative towards the game? Surely there are no content creators that spend all their time being doomer about the game on stream, so just a quick FYI, the actual volume of doomer content from these guys compared to their positive content about the game is incredibly small. So small, in fact, that if it really is influencing the last third of negative reviews that are English speakers, it has to be an idea so infectious that these people were going to think this way anyway. Moreover, these two have shilled for the game on repeat occasions. Stylosa seemed to always be that guy who was super positively covering everything about the game. That didn't seem to sway things in the other direction. Now, essentially his stance seems to be that the reputation of Overwatch 2 and the devs is deserved, and apparently he and other content creators are playing a huge part in how the community sees the game. This is quite interesting to me. How the fuck is it a content creator's duty to manage the entire community's expectations of a video game? The fucking short answer is it's not. I'll tell you whose fucking responsibility it is though. It's the guys who made a really poorly worded announcement at the end of a stream about a limited time Star Watch event that everything everyone had been waiting for just got deleted. Yeah. Content creators' fault. Bro, if it's up to people who don't actually make the game to save the game, do I have to spell it out? Like, really? Look, this video's gotten long enough. To blame some YouTubers and Twitch streamers for Blizzard having a brand so toxic that Overwatch League's sponsors completely pulled out because it would have done them more harm to stay is an extraordinary claim, and it requires extraordinary evidence. The only thing you can bring up is that they've made thumbnails and titles that are clickbaity. You know what else is clickbaity? Overwatch 2 is the best game of all time. I don't think that means everyone's just gonna fucking believe it. I think it's unfortunate that the devs get the short end of the stick, but in-house management in the dev team does have some stuff to answer for. The wider gaming community has had this opinion about Overwatch and Blizzard and are finally displaying it somewhere it matters. And frankly, I'm really glad that the game is doing well on Steam, because those are exclusively Steam numbers and don't count consoles and Battle.net. It might actually be the best of both worlds. Blizzard gets a reality check on player sentiment, the game still gets kept alive, and maybe we can even have a further discussion about how review systems should get used. Anyway, if you disagree with anything I said here, like the video and comment about it. Check out the stream. I love the legendary difficulty on the campaign, and as always, thanks for watching.